what I want you to also do, which is almost even more important, is what's that internal validation? What are those things that you're doing that you should be getting kudos for or compliment, but no one's noticed and no one's given it to you? Write it down in there, because then that's also probably something that you need to amplify and let people know, because it matters to you. Have that people know that you are awesome in some way. And even if it's for yourself, because you count too, that's really important.
Welcome to part 2 of my conversation with Lisa Bragg, author of Bragging Rights, How to Talk About Your Work Using Purposeful Self-Promotion. Lisa and I continue our conversation about imposter experience, why it's never going away, and why it's often just in our head. We explore ideas from Lisa's book, including the terms double bind, the flip test, tall poppy syndrome, and how to start a brag book. If you want to learn how to brag, this is a great place to start. Well, I'm experiencing it right now because you're a journalist and a podcaster, and I'm a new podcaster. So I'm just going through it and asking questions.
It's all in your own head. And sometimes what's in our head is a great friend of ours. And sometimes it's that frenemy and that enemy that is not good. And you know what, though? When we tell people sometimes that we're new at something, the other person will be much more gracious about it. She'll give you that helping hand or give you that you're doing a great job, pat on the back, keep going, that we need along the way. So often we think, oh, well, we should always be helping the next generation. I always want to help the next generation, but I also want to help people who are my peers or even people who are ahead of me. How can I help all of us to get ahead? Because if we're all helping each other, no matter what age and stage, that's where we move ahead. It's Gloria Steinem has a great comment about lighting everyone's torch and not just passing the torch. That's where all of us can have much more belonging. And that's, I think, what's going to help us change things is having that belonging feeling, no matter what age and stage, especially as people are working into their 80s by choice and by passion and by service to the world.
I like that because, we can help somebody in transition no matter what stage they're at. That's when they need the help, is when they're in transition generally.
Yeah. And it's interesting because people think my book is for young people. I've actually written it for people who are mid to late stage. And a lot of people that gave me information on the research, they've been all the places all of us have been here, who's listening in. And so it's interesting to see, yes, it's a book that would be great to have when you're starting out, but it also really resonates for the people who are mid to late to doing their own thing. It really does matter. And the more we can let people know, the better it is for all of us.
Well, you mentioned generational. I'm curious, is bragging different in generations, do you think?
It doesn't seem to, because we all think, oh, the young people are all on social media. They should be so easy with it. And then the people who are super accomplished, oh, shouldn't they be able to do it? They've done all those things. And it's no. And it's interesting doing the research. So I didn't want this to be my perspective. And I'm a white Canadian woman. So I didn't want it to just be from my lens. I thought it was maybe just me at the beginning. And then I realized looking back, I'm like, no, it was all these people. So I set out to do research on it. And, I looked at I did a literature review, seeing what research had been done. And most of it had been done on American university cohorts. So we're talking people who are 20, 21 years old. And then all these professional magazines are talking about it as if it's for all of us. And so that was very curious to me. So I wanted to get a grasp on the world of work and all the ages and stages out there. And so my international research is still open, but what I extrapolated for the book was really interesting, that it's not just Canadian women, it's American women. And as I thought for sure, no way for New Yorkers. We always think of them as bold and going for it. But one of my first people, when I was testing my theory at TED Women, she said, I gave her my theory and she said, oh, Lisa, of course that's for me. I'm a Catholic. And I was like, oh my goodness. Okay. And so many different levels to what makes us unique. The intersectionality of it really does play into it. And so I talked to women in India. I talked to people in Australia, the UK, Japan, a panel of women, because it's very different there because there's much more collectivist than many other countries now, where we are more in an individualistic society. So how does it play in? And then the next question often is, well, what about men? And so I thought, again, I'm writing this for women. I'm going to help my sisters. Well, I've had so many men reach out to me. And in the research too, what I found and discovered what it was quite a bit of is socioeconomic. So depending on where you are in when you're young, allows you to say, I can break rules or I can't break rules. And so if you've been taught because of your low socioeconomic status not to break rules, you're less likely to talk about your successes because bragging is, before this book, bragging was deemed for so long taboo. And so you missed out on opportunities because of that. So all this was so interesting to find out the research, and people told me in the data and the research, but also in interviews after the fact of how much money they lost, the opportunities lost that they deserved. And it irks them to today that they lost those opportunities. So it's been interesting.
Well, it's comforting to know we're all in the same boat on this. So it's good.
So many of us, that's where it's not just me. I thought it was little me, and it's not. There's so many of us who need this. And that's why I'm the joy of like, oh, I bought it for a friend too. Now we're doing a book study. I'm like, oh my goodness, I love that. It's so much fun to hear about it because the book is still new. So it's still a baby. So It's interesting to see it go out in the world.
So in the book, you talk about the term double bind and how women can navigate this challenge. Can you explain what that term is and how women can navigate this challenge?
Well, a lot of it is, talk about your success, but don't talk about your success. Be successful, but don't talk about it. So how do you do that? Like it's a double bind. Like you can't make it happen. And so that's where it's being strategic, where there's women we've heard, she's too ambitious. That's why she didn't get the job. Like we can't have that ambition. So like, how do you show that you're ambitious when you can't show that you're ambitious? How do you show those things? And so it's really, again, being strategic and saying, well, within this organization, I can't let everyone know I'm doing something. So who do I need to tell? Who's that one person that needs to know that I'm doing something? And so that's where being intentional about what you're going to do can really help you figure it out. So, but I want to throw it back to you. Have you been in a double bind? Is that why that's the one of them that picked up on for you, or what were you thinking with double bind?
Probably. I liked it because it was an interesting part of what you were talking about. And it's not a common term. I mean, if I say imposter syndrome or experience, pretty much people will know what I'm talking about. If I say double bind, it may not really speak to everybody, or we may define it differently. I think for me personally, it's similar to that. It's you stand up for yourself, or you talk about your experience, or you, heaven forbid, ask a question and you're labeled difficult. So it's similar in that sense.
And that's where we need to have each other's backs more, right? Because we get it all the time of, well, who do you think you are? Yes. Right. That was one of the things that came up over and over. Who do you think you are? And we have it in our own head, but it's also, socially when you get that. And that's why we need to cheer each other on more. And so becoming each other's cheerleaders, that's, and there's a continuum of it, but starting off as a cheerleader and cheering other people on when they're successful, it doesn't harm your success level at all. And as we go in our careers, we all say, oh, we're all facilitators. We want to help each other. But you know what? A lot of us become obstructors along the way and close those doors on people. Shh. But we do. We want to help the next generation. But when you're at my level, am I going to help you as much? So that's a challenge to the people listening. We think we are, but we're not. It's a double bind for us trying to be successful and then share our successes. And how do we help each other do the same thing? And so considering that, are you helping facilitate and cheerlead somebody on? Because we need those cheerleaders. And also if someone's going for a job or a role, am I biased against her because she has been talking about her successes with pride and justified self-love?
Well, you would think we talked, because that's a perfect segue, because my next question was going to be about Kristen Pressner's flip test. So talk to us a little bit about that and how people can apply it to their lives to help avoid unconscious bias and internalized sexism.
Yeah, it's a TED Talk. It's Kristen Pressner. She's just so brilliant. And I know other people have done it before, but she has made it so succinct on how she delivers it. And so she's HR at Big Pharma. And so she tells how she had 2 different employees ask her to review their pay, how much they're getting and their compensation. And so, well, she did. And she realized afterwards that she was biased, and because she thought the man needed more, but the woman, well, she had a husband, so they're okay. Well, the draw dropper on that is that Kristen Pressner is the breadwinner for her family, but she thought that the man should be compensated more because he's probably the breadwinner. That's not right. So she realized she had to flip it to test it. So she shows in the video how you flip the image. So if we saw an image of a police officer, what do you automatically put in there? A pilot. And would you automatically put a woman in that? And so when you say something, so she shouldn't be bragging about her successes. Would you say that about a man? He shouldn't be talking about his successes. Like you wouldn't say that. Or would you do that with a woman? So would you flip it? You know what? Like for childcare responsibilities. Well, she has childcare responsibilities. Well, it's a disservice to the man to think that he's not taking parental leave. And so we need to flip it to test it for all of our sakes, for belonging, to think, okay, no, that's my bias to think that he doesn't need what she needs. But it's mostly that she also needs what he needs. So thinking about it that way. So it's a great YouTube. I think it's like 10 minutes, but in the book I mentioned her, and she was so generous to give me a few of her thoughts on it too, but allowing ourselves to flip it, to test it, to say, am I biased? Am I causing this person harm by not allowing them to also amplify their successes, or I think lesser of them because they are? And then when we're doing that, I'm going to wag my finger here though. It's also that, what does it say about me when I think that of her? And so often, so many people don't brag and talk about their successes because we're worried about what other people will think. And so if you're the other person thinking that thinking, what does it say about you? And it's often that you're actually in a scarcity mindset and you feel less than. So yeah, giving away lots of the book, but that's the whole thing. How can we be generous with each other and think about success together?
Yeah, it was a great part because I think it's applicable in so many parts of life. You can use it anywhere to help lessen the bias that we all have inherently.
We just can't help it. And again, you know what? The world's changing so fast. So what was right 15 years ago, we didn't know what we didn't know. And our knowledge is growing with that. So how do we help all of us along this continuum to be the best we can be?
You also talk about the difference between positional and professional influence and why we want to focus on the latter.
Yeah. So many of us, I'm a CEO, or I'm the VP, or I'm the entrepreneur, or whatever it is. The challenge is that so many people are only seen that way or given opportunities because of their title. And that's problematic. So you don't want to make your whole life based on getting that VP or the EVP or whatever title it is, because one day you might not have that title. And so will you have still that community around you? And that's why community is so important, because you're in transition time. So many of us do have transition times now where we might not be part of what the regular, I'm using air quotes here, workforce looks like. So when we're in transition and I'm no longer the SVP, the director, I'm no longer the CEO, what is my power in the world? Will people stop calling me because I'm no longer that position? They will stop calling you. You're going to think, oh no, they'll still call me. They'll still remember me. I have many friends and many people that as soon as they left their big title, they were person non grata. Nobody remembered who they were. Nobody invited them to anything. And that's why we want to have professional power. And that's where we've made our networks outside of our silo and beyond, so that people know us and they can also tap into us at any time in our career for an opportunity that we might not have thought of. And it's beyond the title. Titles are fleeting. People make up titles. I had one of the earliest chief storyteller. That was 20 years ago, chief storyteller. We're making up titles all the way through. And I know corporate, we have our org charts and this is how it's always been. We're seeing more and more new titles come in and people flexing all around. So professional influence is more important than your positional influence for the long game that we're all playing.
Well, if you want to move careers or change trajectory, the title is less important than the network that you've cultivated and the relationships you've built along the way.
You just said it so succinctly, because that's what it is. It's exactly that. And that's the gold. And titles might not mean anything. You're business of one at the end of the day. So what does it look like? You're the CEO of your life, no matter what the day, but what it looks like on the outside to other people, some people only contact you if you are that CEO of $1 trillion account. And then when you're not there anymore, who are you? So you know who you are. It's time to let the whole world know about it.
So talk to us about tall poppy syndrome. I like that term quite a bit. And can you give us some examples?
Yeah. So my friend, Dr. Ramit Billen, she really did an extensive study on it. And she's a Canadian too, but it's a term that came out of Australia. And it's Australians really picked it up fast. And then people from the UK, and of course, here in Canada, we talk about it too now. But what it comes down to is that in so many societies and organizations, we have those people that start to go ahead of us. So they're starting to creep up. And then you know what? We come along and we lob off the top. And poppies, farmers lop off the top. They want uniformity. They want them to grow together. But we don't want that in the workplace. But we do that to each other, or we do it as an organization where we are shining stars. We don't want them to shine. So we diminish them. We keep them hidden gems. We demote them. We don't promote them. We do different things. And it's often what women do to other women. That's what my friend's research, Dr. Ramit Billen, found, that it's not necessarily the organization, which does it a little bit, but it's often we do it to each other, which is so sad. And there's part of it is that there's only one seat at the table. Might have been true in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and early 90s, but now we can make our own tables. You know, we can all bring an extra chair. You know this. We can make a folding table. We've heard these things before, but it comes down to, are we diminishing other people who are more successful than ourselves? And so you have to, again, look, am I being biased against them because they are more successful? And understand that some people will get ahead for a short time, and then it's your turn to get ahead. Tall poppy, we cut each other down, and we just have to stop doing that and realize that what is it about the cutter, the person who's doing the cutting? What is it about them? And it's not about me, it's them. So when we have that cattiness, that I wish would go away, it's not about us. It's about them. So what's their problem? And I don't even care. Don't even worry about what their problem is. It's their problem to hold and to take away with. You need to keep doing the best you can be and be as awesome as you can.
And it relates back to the S curve you mentioned too. If you are trying something new and you're not quite a master at it, there's no need to cut down those who are further along the curve, because if you're working and doing what you're trying to accomplish, you're going to come up the S curve eventually.
Yeah. And that's where reframe collaboration over competition. Yes, there are only so many things out there, but if I can collaborate with you, then I can look also like the awesome person that you are, that I'm seen at the same light. So, you're calling yourself the expert of so-and-so. Well, if I'm doing something with you, then I'm probably the expert of so and so, right? So it's like we can also be seen that way. So it's not just that there's only one. There's just so many of us in the world right now that there isn't just going to be one grand poobah. So.
Yeah, true. So I'd like to take the concept of bragging and one's comfortableness with it. And what are your thoughts on how bragging affects the gender wage gap?
Well, so many of us, especially women, you mentioned perfectionism already. We wait till we're perfect. We expect other people to anoint us and to tell us that we should get that promotion instead of saying, no, I need it. I need the money now, and asking for it. We don't come prepared because we think everyone else is watching, because we're watching. So we're not always prepared. So that's where I always recommend, no matter what age and stage, is to start your brag book. And you've heard it before, but really have that smile file, all those things that show what you've been doing in your organization all the way along. Make sure that you're telling your team to start one. So make sure that she is collecting the evidence along the way of how she understands the business at a deep level. She understands how she's helped the company grow. She understands whatever it is that matters to you as the leader. She gets it. And you're letting her in on what the true agenda is. Because we always have, here's the corporate agenda, but as a leader, here's my agenda. We're letting her in on that. So then she can have the metrics and collect things along the way. We need artifacts to have proof, right? So we have to collect it along the way. So no matter which position as a leader, because I know so many of us are leaders listening to this, tell your team to collect it. It makes your life so much easier. And then you can also say, well, you know what? I'm not paying Susie as much as I'm paying Tom, and they're both showing me the exact same things. So what is that? What is the bias against what Susie's doing versus Tom? So I think we really can close more by bringing more evidence and not just, hoping somebody else will talk about our successes. We're showing how we are really moving the dial with the business and working on activities that are business drivers. So I think there's a big part of it. So I think we need to talk about our successes more. The guys are ready to schmooze and tell you all of it, plus 110%, plus a bag of chips, plus all those things, where we're still waiting for other people to talk about our successes. And so that's where women identified, they knew they've lost over their career span $1 million, one woman reported, because she didn't advocate at a few strategic times for a promotion, a wage increase. And then she saw the trajectory of where then her male counterpart ended up because of a few pivotal moments that she didn't take advantage of. So yeah, it was really fascinating to find out.
Well, intellectually, I understand the value of collecting evidence. I think that would be important. But I will admit that when I read the paragraph about starting a Bragg book, emotionally, I was like, I can't do that. I didn't even know where to start. I paused and thought about it, and I thought, well, I don't know how I would do that. So it's a great point, but definitely a challenging task.
It is, but make it simple on yourself. Don't try to go back in time because that's exhausting. So today, when someone gives you a compliment like, hey, you're a great interviewer.
There, I can just cut that. I'm going to keep it.
Copy that.
Yeah.
First of all, it helps you on those days that are blue, right?
Yes.
But copy it and put it in your smile file. Copy it for your Bragg book that, hey, somebody said I'm a good interviewer because I have great listening skills. And then if somebody gives you a compliment in an email or on a, performance review or passing on the street where they say, hey, great hat. Like it can be that little, right? It doesn't have to be everything grounded in these great big metrics, but have it there that you have this external validation. But what I want you to also do, which is almost even more important, is what's that internal validation? What are those things that you're doing that you should be getting kudos for or compliment, but no one's noticed and no one's given it to you? Write it down in there, because then that's also probably something that you need to amplify and let people know because it matters to you. So when you think, hey, you know what, I've done this great thing. I've done all these podcasts or I've done this great work and, I've hosted these great dine arounds and people should know that I'm a great host, whatever it is, like have that people know that you are awesome in some way. And even if it's for yourself, because you count too, that's really important. So just start writing that one thing today. And it can be just something that you have a little book on the side of your desk or some sort of folder and start putting things in there and compliment yourself. If you didn't get a compliment this week or today, then think about that one thing that you did. That's like, hey, you know what? It could be as simple as I got dressed. Like during the pandemic, it was that we were celebrating that we got dressed that day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why aren't we still celebrating? Like whatever it is that matters, like you did that one thing. Good on you. You did your hair. Good on you. You landed $1 billion client. Good on you. You landed, whatever it is that you bought a good book that's going to help you, whatever it is that's going to matter. It's just small things that end up to being big things as we go forward.
It's great advice. I'm going to give it a try. I promise.
Good. I want to see it. Send me a few. I love hearing them.
So let's layer the concept of mentorship on top of the book. Or the concept of bragging, I guess, or learning how to be seen and heard. How can mentors help mentees learn to be seen and heard?
Yeah. So, and just remember, we can be all, no matter age and stage, a mentor and a mentee. And so it could be somebody who is 85 being mentored by somebody who is 15 years old. So we always think that it's older, elder, younger. It is not that way at all. So it's really, how do you make sure that you articulate the strengths that you see in front of you. So when you see someone and they're doing awesome things, tell them that they are doing awesome things and let them know. So I think it's part of that is letting your mentee know that they are navigating in this world. So I go through, I even in more of my teaching, it's not just so many women are told to be mentors and mentees. Mm-hmm. And that only gets us so far. What I really want us to all do is how do we become champions of each other? So we have sponsors, champions, and brand ambassadors. And so what I really want us to do is be that brand ambassador. So brand ambassador is that person who's talking about you, who might not have never met you, but is talking about the good work that you're doing in the rooms that you're not in at that point in time. That's what you really need. And that's the gold, the pinnacle of the book, that if you can get to that stage, that's amazing. And so being a brand ambassador and then somebody helping open those doors, it's such a great feeling. But there's steps along the way of how do we really help, and making sure that our organizations have those people in there. So, formally we do have mentors and sponsors often, but how do we make sure those sponsors know how to interact with their teams and find them that right person to sponsor that young person or old person? How do we then become champions of people to help them to, figure out that maybe I shouldn't be in this silo of marketing anymore. Maybe I need to do something that's much more business focused or responsible for a P&L or something like that. Like, what do I need to do? And so thinking about it that way of how do I actually help champion someone's career beyond just this next move is really important. But mentor, we can all mentor each other and give us those stories of, you know what, this is what happened to me. Don't do this again. Or here's how I opened that door and found success in it. And the world might not be exactly the same way for you, but I want to tell you my steps of success, because it's moments along the way that matters. The challenge is we often only see those milestones of when you're standing there with a beautiful award. That's a milestone, but how about the moments that got you there? Let's tell each other those stories, because it's not just luck. When we say that, we diminish so much for ourselves. Oh, I got lucky. That was just luck. No, it's not luck. It's not luck. You did so many great things to get there. Please tell me. Please tell me. Please tell me. If you have a book that's a New York Times bestseller, please tell me what you did. Please tell me along the way. I want to know how you did what you did. So then maybe it's easier for my journey and the journey of people who will come after me.
I agree. The journey is always the more interesting story anyway than the milestone.
Yeah.
So, Lisa, what do you think the biggest challenge facing women leaders today is?
Oh my goodness. You know what? If I had that, I would write another book. And
there you go.
I think one of the things that we can achieve is being seen and heard. So that's where I think that is a big hurdle, where if more of us were seen and heard and people knew how we are here to serve, then we would be able to change things a lot faster. And it's not about the noise. It's about having that intentional message that will make the difference. So often we think the next person will do it. They'll be the change that we want to see, but unfortunately it has to come down to often just us. And if we can get, our allies in whatever organizations we're in, all the organizations we're in, to help promote us, to help, amplify our message, then we'll make the change that we want to see. Because I think so often a lot of us feel muted in this world, that it's not my place to say anything, that I should let other people, I'm always passing the microphone, but we keep passing the microphone, which if you are too much at the mic, yes, you need to pass it. But so often we think, well, I'll just pass it to the next person because she's never had it. Well, yes, and get another microphone and share that microphone. Bring her with you in the same message. Then we look stronger together instead of always just passing the microphone along. I think that's where we need to amplify each other and show up for each other and cheer each other on more and more and open doors for each other. So that collectivist attitude in this very individualistic society, I think, is part of what's going to help us along the way is sharing each other and being there for each other.
Well, that's great advice. I think we can all learn from that.
Well, especially this organization,
yes.
Right? Like, come on. It's meant for this whole messaging of all the awesomeness that's here and the brains and just the missions and vision that could be here and that is here. And then attracting more of those fit people that really are the achievers that we need in the world and that we need to see more of, and let them do great things and tell others so that they can do even bigger great things.
I agree. Lisa, thank you so much for being here. I really loved talking to you because it brought the book to life, and that was a privilege for me to be able to do that with you.
Oh, what an honor. Thank you for sharing me with this awesome audience. I'm so excited to get to know more of you as I continue my journey, and I appreciate your time, Amy. Thank you so much.
And before we go, tell us, where can we find the book?
Well, get it wherever you get books. So everywhere now. It's so exciting. It's available not just as a print book, but also as an audiobook, because I have friends who have neurodivergent. So doing the audiobook was really important to me. So there's an audiobook. And of course, there's an ebook out there in the world too. So go get it wherever you get books. And if you can, write a review. So this is my ask, write a review because it really does count. We don't think that when we write a review, it matters, but it really does matter to anyone who has a podcast, anyone who has a small business,
Yes.
anyone who's doing anything. It does matter to write those reviews, and especially for authors getting their little baby books out into the world so more people can see it and know about it. It really does make a difference. So that's my ask today. So thank you.
You're welcome. Congratulations on the book. And I look forward to hearing about your next book.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate and subscribe to our podcast. When you do this, it raises our podcast profile so more leaders can find us and be inspired by the stories our Voices of Leadership have to share. If you would like to connect with us, please visit the Voices of Leadership website. It can be found in our show notes.